The sky was dark, the air thick with smoke, and the world seemed to blur in the chaos of flames. People screamed. Fire trucks wailed. But through it all, one sound cut through the madness like a knife, a soft, terrified meow. It was barely audible over the roar of fire, but it reached him. Mark stood frozen on the sidewalk, eyes locked on the house that was now engulfed in flames. Most people had gathered at a distance, watching helplessly as the blaze consumed everything. But Mark, he couldn't walk away. Not after what he'd heard. Earlier that day, Mark had taken his usual route home from work. He didn't know the family who lived there, only that he often saw their cat sitting on the window ledge. A beautiful gray tabby with curious green eyes. She'd always watched him pass by. Sometimes he waved. Once, he even left her a treat. Now, that same house was burning, and the cat was trapped inside. A firefighter held Mark back. "Sir, you can't go in there. The house is unstable. It could collapse any minute." Mark's chest pounded. His breath caught. "But there's a cat inside. I can hear it. Please do something." "We know," the firefighter said, glancing toward his team. "We're trying, but it's not safe yet. We need backup." But Mark couldn't wait. He looked at the house, the orange glow behind the windows, the smoke spilling from the roof, and then back at the firefighter. "I'm sorry. I have to try." Before anyone could stop him, Mark ran. The front door had been blown in, revealing a hallway thick with smoke and flames licking the walls. The heat was suffocating, the air nearly unbreathable. Coughing, he pulled his shirt up over his mouth and squinted through the haze. "Here, kitty. Please, where are you?" A tiny cry. To the left, toward the living room. He stumbled forward, his hands reaching out blindly until he saw her. Huddled beneath a coffee table, eyes wide, her body trembling. She was covered in soot, but still breathing. Mark dropped to his knees, crawling toward her. "It's okay. I've got you. You're gonna be okay." He reached under, but the cat backed away, terrified. "Please," he whispered. "I'm here to help. I won't let anything happen to you." Another loud crack from above. The ceiling groaned. Time was running out. Mark reached again, slower this time, gentler. Finally, the cat allowed him to scoop her up into his arms. She clung to his chest, digging her claws in from fear, not aggression. The way back out was already different. A bookshelf had collapsed in the hallway. The fire was worse now. He hesitated, searching for another way. The window. It was their only chance. Mark turned, shielding the cat with his body. With everything he had left, he charged at the window. The glass shattered, slicing into his shoulder, but he didn't let go. He hit the ground hard outside, coughing violently, the cat still cradled in his arms. The crowd rushed forward. Someone screamed. Firefighters came running. "Get him medical attention. He's bleeding." But all Mark cared about was the small, soot-covered face pressed against his chest. She was alive. She was safe. As the medics bandaged his wounds, a little girl ran up, maybe 7 or 8 years old, her cheeks streaked with tears and ash. "Whiskers," she cried. "You saved Whiskers." Mark looked up at her and smiled, despite the pain. "She's a brave girl. She just needed a hand." The girl hugged him tightly, and the crowd watched in silence, the fire still burning behind them. But somehow, in that moment, it didn't feel as dark. He had no idea how this one act would ripple through his life. Reporters were already showing up. A stranger with a camera had filmed the whole thing. But none of that mattered now. He had jumped into fire for a cat. And everything was about to change. End of part 1. Please prompt for part 2 to continue the story. The next morning, Mark woke up in a hospital bed, his shoulder heavily bandaged and sore. The antiseptic smell clung to the air, and machines beeped quietly beside him. He blinked against the bright lights and slowly sat up, his mind foggy until the memory of the fire hit him like a wave. The cat. He looked around in a panic until a nurse stepped in, holding a tablet. "You're awake. That's good. We were worried about you, Mr. Markson." "The cat," he croaked. "Is she okay?" The nurse smiled softly. "Whiskers. She's fine. A bit shaken, but not a scratch on her. She's with her family now. And the media's been asking about you nonstop. You're kind of a hero." Mark shook his head. "I didn't do it for cameras. I heard her. I couldn't leave her." "Well," the nurse said gently, tapping the tablet, "you might want to know, this video has over 2 million views already." She turned the screen. There he was on the ground, cradling Whiskers as smoke poured from the burning house. Someone had recorded everything. There were headlines now. "Man dives into inferno to rescue family cat. Everyday hero risks life for a pet. Not all heroes wear capes. Mark stared, speechless. Later that day, a woman came in with the same little girl from the fire, Whiskers' family. The girl ran to Mark's bedside, holding a handmade card covered in hearts and crayon scribbles. "Thank you for saving my best friend," she said. Tears filled Mark's eyes. He reached out and gently took her hand. "I think she saved me too." The mother, eyes wet, nodded. "We owe you everything. That cat, she's more than a pet. My husband passed last year. Whiskers was his. She's all we had left of him. We thought we'd lost her too, until you ran into that fire." Mark didn't know what to say. He just nodded, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. Over the next few days, as he recovered, more letters came. Gifts. Messages from strangers. Animal shelters wrote, thanking him for bringing attention to the bond between humans and pets. Local news requested interviews. A national morning show even sent a team. When the reporter asked, "Why'd you do it?" Mark answered honestly, "Because someone had to. She was alone. Scared. And I just couldn't live with myself if I walked away." Soon, animal lovers across the country were sharing their own rescue stories, using the hashtag for Whiskers. A charity campaign started in Mark's name, raising money for local animal shelters. They called it the Markson Mission. But not everything was easy. While many praised him, there were critics too, people who said it was reckless, that he could have died, that firefighters are trained for this, and civilians should stay out of the way. Mark listened to those voices. But he also thought about the little girl, about her father, about Whiskers' wide, terrified eyes in that burning room. He didn't regret a thing. One afternoon, after he was discharged from the hospital, Mark visited the local shelter. The staff greeted him like a celebrity. One of the volunteers, a young woman named Casey, approached with a clipboard and a big smile. "We're naming our new rescue room after you," she said. "The Heroes Denver, would you like to see it?" Mark chuckled, rubbing his still sore shoulder. "That's a bit much, don't you think? Not for someone who ran into a fire." The room was small but bright, filled with rescued animals in need of homes. Cats curled in soft beds. Dogs wagged their tails behind fences. Mark knelt down near one of the cages, where a scared-looking beagle huddled in the corner. "Hey there, buddy," he whispered. "You look like you've had a rough time, too." Casey stood behind him. "We found him abandoned in a box on the side of the road. He won't let anyone touch him." Mark held out his hand gently, palm down. The beagle sniffed it, trembled, but didn't back away. Something clicked in that moment. Mark stood up, turning to Casey. "I want to volunteer." Her face lit up. "We'd love to have you." He didn't know it yet, but that decision, to spend time helping animals heal, would mark the beginning of a new chapter in his life. One that went far beyond a single rescue. One that would change everything. And just when he thought he'd done his part, life had more in store. That night, as he sat by his window, Whiskers' thank you card resting on the table beside him, his phone rang. He picked up. "Mr. Markson? This is the director of the National Animal Rescue League. We saw what you did. We'd like to talk. End of part 2. Please prompt for part 3 to continue the story." Mark sat in a quiet cafe, holding a warm cup of coffee as light rain tapped gently against the window. Across from him sat Dr. Lorraine Pierce, director of the National Animal Rescue League. Her voice was warm, her smile patient. "What you did, Mark," she said, "wasn't just brave. It was selfless. The world needs more people like you. That's why we're offering you a position, outreach and community engagement lead." Mark blinked. "You want me to work with you? I'm not a vet. I don't have training." Dr. Pierce chuckled. "You have something even rarer, heart, and a story that people listen to. That's how we inspire change." It wasn't an easy decision. Mark had a stable, if unremarkable, job at a logistics firm. But ever since that day at the burning house, something in him had shifted. He'd felt purpose. He'd felt alive. He accepted the offer. Months passed, and Mark's life transformed. He traveled city to city, sharing his story in schools, on talk shows, and at community centers. He organized rescue drives, connected shelters, and even helped design a rapid response rescue unit for emergency situations. Whiskers' story became the centerpiece of his talks. How one frightened cat in a fire reminded a man of his own humanity. But it wasn't just about animals anymore. Mark often met children who had suffered loss, veterans with PTSD, and elderly folks who lived alone. Again and again, he saw how animals weren't just pets. They were anchors, companions, even healers. One afternoon, he returned to the shelter where it all started. Casey greeted him with her usual bright grin, but this time, she held a leash. On the other end, that same beagle he'd met months ago, now stronger, tail wagging, eyes bright. "We named him Chance," she said. "Because you gave him one." Mark knelt down, scratching behind Chance's ears. "You ready to come home, buddy?" He adopted Chance that day. Life was far from perfect. The job was hard, the stories often heartbreaking. But Mark had found something worth waking up for. Something that gave the pain meaning. Years later, a book hit the shelves. Into the Fire, The Man Who Jumped for a Cat. It became a bestseller. Not because of the drama, but because of the message. The last line read, "Sometimes it takes a single spark of courage to ignite a lifetime of purpose." And that was Mark's legacy. Not just the man who saved a cat from a burning house, but the man who reminded the world that compassion still mattered. That even in the darkest moments, we can choose to act. To care. To save. Moral of the story asterisk. True heroism isn't about glory. It's about heart. One small act of kindness can ripple into countless lives, sparking hope where it's most needed. When we choose compassion over comfort, we become part of something greater than ourselves. Mark never planned to be a hero. He just couldn't ignore a cry for help. And because of that, the world, for people and pets alike, became just a little bit brighter. End of story.